Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Roe. I promise you I would. Um, there's a lot involved, so it's not gonna be just like one big video. It'll be a couple of videos depending on how long they go. Um, we'll see how that goes. I mean, it'd be a long video if I did one video because there's a lot involved in Roe. There's a lot of parts. Anyway, so reminder that I'm not an expert. I'm sharing my knowledge of how I understand everything. I'm also not going to necessarily promise to be unbiased. I'll do my best. Like I said before, there are some people and some things that I just absolutely hate. And my bias will come out, so I apologize for that. Can't do much about it. So, to start off, I guess I have to talk about how things were back in the day, like really far back. So, back in the day, um, abortion was okay because kids weren't considered fetuses. Sorry, fetuses weren't considered kids, and that's how it was. Um, and depending on where you are religiously, um, it all has to do with like the soul. Uh, Obviously, if you're like an atheist, you're not gonna believe in a soul necessarily. You believe like brains and neurons are firing. That's really cool. I applaud you for thinking that. But honest, like personally, I believe that there has to be another step above that. There has to be something in there that makes you you. Um, 'Cause I don't think brains specifically are super unique, even though they probably are. I don't know enough about like medical stuff to actually like really comment on that, so I apologize. Um, but yeah, so you have your reincarnation, which is like a Buddhist and Hindu, and maybe Jewish, depending on the type of Jewish person you're talking about. Or you keep getting reborn, and then you have like your Christianity, possibly Muslim. Don't quote me on that. I'm not 100% sure. Where you are brand new, and you're just existing. All of those, and if I did not mention religion, I apologize. I don't know 100% about every religion, and I don't want to, like, I'm not going to go off and talk about paganism. I don't know enough about each pagan religion, so I apologize. Um, but if you include a soul, which is a concept that's been around since forever, even like the concept of like afterlife and stuff like that, they imply that you have to have a soul because your body has to do something. We all know that it deteriorates, but what happens to the person inside? Um, and so the second that your child was born, as in like comes out of a uterus and takes its first breath, starts crying, that was the moment a child was considered alive, because that was the moment the soul is said to be put in the body. As in, the air that you breathe gives you your soul, which makes a lot of sense. Obviously, not scientifically, but it just makes a lot of sense in general. So, thinking about it like that, you also have things, if you know like middle age lore and why we say specific things, it's another reason why when we sneeze we say bless you, because the devil might catch your soul. So that's like your soul like leaving your body. It's really interesting when you think about it and like you connect those things. Either way, fetuses are not considered people at this point in time. They are considered fetuses, possible kids. I mean, and this is at the time where people can get like 20 kids. This is like throwing spaghetti against the wall, hoping someone would survive. So that way they could have like help work, help sustain food, do all of that stuff. Even if the kid was born, there's no guarantee that they would live. I mean, we're talking about like medieval times, 1800s, 1700s, all of that stuff. All of which is very important to consider when you think about it. Life and death were a lot more relaxed in a way, and how people talk about life and death was a lot more relaxed. Like, oh no, this person died. Move on. And don't get me wrong, we're very desensitized to it nowadays as well, but for a lot of different reasons. Um, so when you breathe, you get life. Really cool until about the 1800s, late 19th century, whatever way you want to talk about it, both are right. Doctors were doctors. A lot of people. There was no way that someone could be a doctor. There was no board certification. So like I don't know if y'all have heard the term quacks before, but it was like quacks were like incredibly common. Um, and so it's like, oh yeah, like all the jokes like, yeah, yeah, do cocaine about it. Oh, you're sick, you should drink whiskey. Probably a lot of those had to do with quacks, like cutting off arms and all that stuff. Obviously, there was advancements in scientific methods and technologies as well that tends to help. Um, but considering all of that, doctors were basically like real, like accredited doctors weren't necessarily listened to because the quacks, there were so many of them. And so the doctors tried to figure out the best way to get people to respect them. And sadly, that way meant to start attacking midwives. If you don't know what a midwife helps someone give birth. They help breathing exercises, like they kind of train the body, get prepared for the big push, I guess. Um, Make sure everything goes relatively smoothly. They come to your house, they help that. And that was a institution for mainly filled mainly with women, because it makes sense for women to know that how to give birth, how to do all that stuff, the anatomy, and doctors did not like that, so they started demonizing midwives, to start gaining their own thoughts and credibility, and it worked, and that's kind of cool. And the idea that they use that flavor of manipulation, I guess, and that tactic, you see a lot of tactics like that. So it started about in like the 1920s, maybe the 30s, maybe the 10s. But you start seeing abortion becoming illegal because doctors are outlawing it so they can start attacking midwives to get their accreditation. Um, and it was never a religious thing. Um, Considering, and especially with how everything goes today, we live in a country of freedom of religion. That also means we just basically live in a Christian country. Nowadays, it's more accurate than it should be, but we live in a Christian country, so having like heavily beliefs that fetuses are alive, that was a thing, and religion and abortion weren't a thing. So anyway, doctors finally get the credibility, but women and midwives are obviously very much hurt. Basically goes like they almost get obsolete. They don't. There's still midwives today. People train to be midwives. That's important to talk about, because women's healthcare is really important. But yeah, so the carnage left behind was so bad. Um, Now I'm gonna talk about not necessarily coat hanger abortions, um, because using a coat hanger was something that you would do out of the most extreme desperation. Um, and if you very much did not have the money and you knew you couldn't support a child, it's just rough. Like, don't get me wrong, and people do get there, but a lot of the other parts about abortion was that you would have to go, like, some doctors would try to perform them, but it'd be dangerous. And since, like, a lot of the midwives and the people who really knew how to do it, like, they knew how to do it, but that doesn't mean they knew how to do it effectively. So botched abortions were actually, I think, more the main cause of carnage and death when it comes to that sort of thing. And because of that, ERs would fill up full of women. A lot of who would die, it'd be very bloody. Because the abortion, like, they clipped something wrong, they didn't know what they were doing, all that crazy stuff. Doctors may or may not have been, like, the potential to lose their board certifications. Like, it was a crazy time. Now, like, and that's like 50s and 60s still. Like, I'm not, yeah, it's crazy. So, getting right before Roe starts existing, we have really cool societies and really cool, like, people realize that this is a problem, and not just women, of course. Women do recognize that it's a problem. A lot of doctors recognize it's a problem because you have all these women clogging up ERs, um, and they shouldn't be over something that is a relatively easy procedure because they have to go to places that aren't necessarily like they can't afford really good abortions or things like that. So because the last abortions, women would die, it would clog up ERs. Other people, I don't know what people would get thrown in the ER for, probably falling out of trees or something. So yeah, when you consider that, it is a problem. When you consider the amount of people dying, it's a problem. And so doctors were obviously now finally like, oh no, we made a mistake, kind of. No one's like, oh, we made a mistake. They were just like, wow, we need to do something about this. Women also said we need to do something about this. Nurses in Chicago, there was this place called the Jane Society, and they're really cool. And they were basically a bunch of nurses, and when they were doing their rounds, they would learn about abortions. So they were underground to give women safe abortions because they knew what they were doing, and they actually did it for quite a while. They may or may not have gotten caught. I'm not 100% sure. I will give you that information later, because we will be talking about abortion for a couple more videos for sure. And so another people that actually hopped on that train as well, that we don't consider is clergy, pastors, people in the church, because the value of life, women's life, was considered actually valuable, even if we didn't necessarily think so. Mind you, this was like 60s and 70s, so like booming feminisms, gay liberation, civil rights, all that crazy stuff. So like viewing people as becoming like an actual thing, at least more so than usual. And they didn't want people to die because having people unnecessarily die is a bad thing. Well, it's supposed to be a bad thing. Depending on who you are, maybe it's not, which is sad, but whatever. And so yeah, all these people are against abortion, and that kind of sets the stage for the next part. I'm out of time, so I'm not gonna get into that today. I'll get into that eventually, but just like kind of sit and marinate. Remember, souls of gold. I love you guys. So that's some left for me. Okay, you have a good day. Bye.